Start streaming. Are you sure? Yes, kinda. I don't know. It's been a month. Who knows? This could end terribly. And we're live. What is up, guys? It is Sunday, the 8th of April. It has been a month and a bit since we last had a podcast. However, we're here now, and we are joined by the amazing, the wonderful, the always great to talk with, Greg Morris. How are you?
I don't know what to say after that ridiculously long introduction. I've never been called amazing and great to talk to, followed by usually being abused. But yeah, it's great. It's always good to talk to you, George.
Yeah, I made sure to kick Paul out of this episode just to make sure he couldn't abuse you. I was like,
yeah, where is Paul?
He couldn't make it today, unfortunately. He was thinking about it. He was going to, but he couldn't make it, unfortunately.
He was already booked in at the spray tan place or something like that, I'm sure.
Yeah, he actually recently moved as well, so he's been sort of sorting all that jazz out. So unfortunately, he can't join us. He did want to say, I think he told me to mention like lack of headphone jack or something, like just in passing. I can't remember what it was.
I've got plenty of. I don't know. Pick up your Huawei, George, and tell me if has that still got a headphone jack.
This doesn't. No. I use Bluetooth headphones as well, so I don't care either. It was just Paul at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Have we still not got over this headphone jack thing? That was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, I think he's like standing on his Samsung high horse of headphone jack, and I know that's about it, right? At this point,
I'll just call me in 2 months when your TouchWiz has slowed down. Hi, Paul.
Yes. Oh man. So it's been a while since we spoke. In part because we haven't had a podcast in a month, and in part because I wanted to get you on like what feels like forever ago. This would have been just before the new year, right? To talk about when you temporarily quit Twitter.
Where I forgot. There was once where I think I thought we were doing it earlier than we were, and then there was once where I was busy. I think the one where I forgot was my favourite because you were like, "Where are you?" I was like, crap." I kind of forgot.
It's difficult though because I don't want to like. I'm not sure if you have this when you have guests on, but I don't want to like push people too much because the moment I'm like, messaging you every 2 minutes, like, you're ready, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I like to assume he remembered. and I was sat there like any second now he's going to turn up and I'm going to be like, oh, I was just being an idiot for like assuming he wasn't going to.
No, it turns out I completely forgot. I can only apologise. I have those kind of relationships as well. I turn up for meetings at work. And then people don't turn up. I was like, yeah, it's fine. I've only driven 4 hours for the meeting. It's fine. Yeah, no problem. It's fine. When all you want to do is flip tables.
Yeah. I have that, but I'm sort of intrinsically 10 minutes late to everything. So,
right. You've got the same disease as my wife.
It's like, I think, I mentioned this like in a vlog I did like a year ago. I think it's a YouTuber thing. Because I'm yet to see someone vlog and turn up somewhere on time, like, at the same time. I think those are two mutually exclusive things.
Right.
Like because I was, vlogging that day and I just didn't turn up on time. I was always like 10 minutes late precisely to everything.
Actually, George, I think you were late for that on a photo walk.
I was, yes. Yeah, I was. I wasn't even late for that. I was actually because I worked like literally just around the corner back then.
Mm-hmm.
It was that I couldn't find you guys.
It's not like we weren't stood in the middle of a park or something.
Or that someone was wearing a bright blue Honor shirt. No, that wasn't happening.
Yeah, exactly. No, it wasn't that.
On the subject of branded stuff, you might like to hear this, and I'll make sure to send you one at some point. I recently got a bunch of Snappy-Tech stickers printed.
Yes,
so
I would love one to join my lovely Mario sticker on my MacBook Pro. It's looking very bare.
I have it in the middle of my Chromebook, which I didn't bring up with me. It's downstairs. And that is now covered in stickers. And I have it placed right in the middle. So it looks like, where the Apple logo would be. There's just a Snappy-Tech logo. And then on top of that, I have an Apple logo because, everyone in my house has Apple devices. So Apple stickers were easy to get a hold of. In the top right-hand corner of the device, I have an Apple logo, but it's upside down relative to all other logos.
Right.
And that's a reference to the fact that I think if you fly the American flag upside down, it's like a sign of distress or something. So I've got like the Apple logo upside down.
So everybody else in your house uses Apple stuff?
Yeah. It's literally just me who doesn't.
So basically, you're like one of those kids that grows up in an ultra-religious house and just rebels just because. Aren't you?
That is part of it. Yeah, I'm like I
Yeah.
refuse to use Apple products. um, and it's bizarre because now that you mention it, I think you know what. Let's get into the history of George. Let's do this. So because we used to have a MacBook. That was
I'll
like
do my best psychologist voice for you, George.
Oh.
So how does that make you feel?
we used to have a MacBook that we used like as a main PC for quite some time, and we got it like we moved to Hong Kong and we lived there for like 3 years. And, you know, Apple stuff was relatively cheap out there, so we got it whilst out there, and when we moved back, the MacBook got stolen like within a week of moving to the house we were at before this one. They basically like, broke into our front door, like did a clean sweep of the ground floor. So they took like a couple of sets of car keys. There was like a laptop. What else was down there? And then, you know, there's like some money out of a wallet. Got in the car and then got in our car and drove off. And so with the insurance money we got off of that, we bought like a Sony Vaio, like £300 laptop. Dear. Now, what I find hilarious is I already had like a custom built PC at this point, so it had no influence on me. But what I found hilarious was that they were comparing this £300 Windows laptop to the MacBook. Now, this laptop is like circa, call it 2012. So it wasn't exactly peak Windows laptops.
No.
B, it was £300, so it was, you know, like made entirely out of plastic, and I think it has a 1080p display. It might be 768. It's still downstairs, like it's just like kicking around. It was really thick because it was back when they had like the full size like DVD drives and everything. And I'm just, you know, I'm sat there like, guys, like you have to at least compare it to a Windows laptop of a similar price. Like you can't buy a budget Windows laptop and be annoyed when it doesn't perform, right?
Yeah. That's ridiculous. So basically, you got the insurance money from them stealing a MacBook, and you bought literally one of the worst choices you could have made.
The best part was...
So what happened with the car then? Did they like steal a BMW and you bought like a Vauxhall Vectra?
It wasn't too far off. They stole a BMW 5 Series. And they stole it because, you know, it's relatively sizable and relatively quick. And they were experts because they like rolled up in a car, broke in, nicked the stuff and left. And then like 2 days later there was footage of someone like rolling up to a different house like in our car and doing a very similar job. So they were experts at this. But so what happened was, you know, that car got nicked, and we got it back, but it was essentially a write-off, so we got the insurance money for it. My dad bought a £250 Ford Focus. Which he proceeded to write off within 6 months because he didn't properly seat the hood, and we were going down the motorway and it popped up.
I have no words. But
yeah, what was great is like before they bought the laptop, my dad was being like really smug about like how great a purchase it was. He was like, you know, it's only £300. It's gonna work amazingly. Like this is back when they had like it was like I'm pretty sure it was a Celeron processor. Like it was.
Oh yes,
it was
the
like
peak
truly pathetic
processors. Yeah,
yeah. Because now you can get. I think I was watching Linus Tech Tips do a video. They have like 6-core i9s that you can get in laptops, and those are just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous now. Yeah, I mean the stuff that they're pushing forward. They seem to have obviously been through 2 or 3 years of not really doing much, and now they've just thought, screw it, we'll just do it all.
Yeah,
I suppose with battery technology and cooling and stuff like that, it's going crazy, and yet we're still stuck with a Core M MacBook.
The Core M MacBook
that can't even open like complex spreadsheets very well.
The Core M MacBook is something that really confuses me because that thing is not cheap.
No, it's $12.99, I think.
And the best part about that is, you know, they always advertise like the boost clock, right? They're like, oh, it boosts up to whatever it is, like 3.4, 3.2, something like that. But if you look at the clock rate it runs at normally, it's like 1.8 gigahertz. And I'm like, really, guys? You guys are like pushing this as a flagship laptop that you can buy and replace practically anything. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, they need to get back to the good old days where you could buy a decent-ish MacBook for £1,000 and go from there. Because well, the laptops that they've got at the minute are, well, the less said about them, the better. Let's hope that WWDC brings something, or Dub, as we
Yes.
aficionados refer to it as.
Yeah, because God knows the education event didn't produce anything.
well,
I
the update to the iPad's a good update. I mean, I'm really glad that the Apple Pencil is open to more people. But other than that, yeah, it's just not going to make much difference, is it?
Yeah, and I think pitching it as an educational device was what I found most bizarre. Because the reason that Chromebooks are stealing that market is because, like, the Chromebook I have a Acer Chromebook 14, and it has been working really well for me. It's about 6 months old, but it's got like a full metal build, and you know, if you look at it from a distance, you can kind of mistake it for a MacBook, but it's like brushed metal instead of just like the generic,
Yeah.
like whatever. So you know, it looks a lot more expensive than it actually is. And they have dropped that by like £70. So you can buy one for £200 now, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Whereas I can understand using, and I know that you use an iPad Pro for a lot of your work now.
Yeah.
And I can understand that, but from an educational point of view, like $299 for an iPad is, you know, fair enough. It's $279 if you're a teacher or student. You get a nice little discount of 20 quid, which I think is more. I think it makes sense at volume, but if you're a pupil buying a laptop, buying a
it's not going to make a lot of difference, is it?
Right. But so just for but that's just for the iPad, right? If you want to then type on it, you have to buy a smart cover, and then if you want the pencil, that's another 90 quid or whatever it is. So the whole package compared to 200 quid for that laptop just doesn't quite add up to me.
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's all the tools that go with it. Obviously, being able to just power wash the thingy and reset it back to normal in like a couple of minutes, and having the management tools and all those sorts of things available. And yeah, there is now class kit and schoolwork and all that sort of stuff, but it just completely pales in comparison. What they release really is still for those schools that have already adopted iPads or that sort of thing. It's really to give them something to kind of upgrade to. I don't think they're going to all of a sudden appeal to most of the mainstream schools, certainly not in the UK. I don't know what your experience of school is, George, but there's no way any of the schools that I went to would be able to afford that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
you're going to tell me you went to some really like posh public
actually
school,
my school, you can see my school out of that window right there because I live next door to my old secondary school. And they're relatively high performing, but they, like most schools in the UK, are very much cash strapped. Yes. And when they got the BBC micro bits, which were like the £15 BBC PCs, not PCs, like Raspberry Pi competitors, you know, those were like £10-15, and so they got the first year for free, right? So I think all year 7s got them for free 1 year. And they were like, oh, these are really great, you know, the students really love them, but we got whatever it was, like 100 of these. We can't afford to buy 100 more next year. So the kids that get them, you know, they're loving them, but, you know, we have a few lying around. I think they bought like 5 or 6 of them, so you can sort of share it between like 3 or 4 per class, you know.
Yeah. And
they have something like 5 Raspberry Pis or something. So when you have a class of, you know, 26 pupils, it's just not enough. They were running a GoFundMe a year or so ago, which I stuck a couple £100 in, trying to raise money to improve school computers because they haven't been improved in like 8 years, right? So, you know, and
crazy,
this is supposedly like, you know, one of the better off schools. I can't imagine going to a school that is underperforming and trying to, you know, buy iPads for them. Like, it's just
it's just never going to happen. And these are the times where we should really be focusing on this sorts of things, because this is the kind of boom time, isn't it, for kids learning to code and introducing females into that sort of thing, and obviously teaching engineering and all that sort of stuff that goes with it. But they're cash strapped for everything, aren't they? I mean, physical education equipment and all that sort of stuff is exactly the same. And no, as much as Apple trying to appeal to that. I think the event probably did more for those in sort of college and university, and perhaps even in enterprise, to use it for like meetings and stuff like
Yeah.
that, which I do, rather than schools. I think that's really what they aim to do. I mean, the NHS spends ridiculous amounts of money a year on iPads. It's just crazy. It, the difference when you're buying sort of like you say 100 things, 20 quid, yeah, will help. But if you can halve it by buying Chromebooks instead, it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah.
And get better management tools and stuff to go with it. The only issue that I do really worry about, and this is the whole reason why Google do it, isn't it? Because they do make these promises to not collect data while it's an education account and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
But as soon as your teacher flags you as kind of left school, it turns into a normal Google account, and obviously then you get the associations with it collecting data, and perhaps at the time you didn't necessarily sign up for that.
Yeah, I think at that point it probably there needs to be, and I think the right way to go about this would be to, I like to hope that they'd send you an email and say, hey, by the way, it's no longer an education account. This is what we'll be tracking now. Highly doubt they do that, right? But that'd be the right way to go about it. And
yeah,
the feeling that I hope that teachers would be like, hey, just so you know, they'll now keep tabs on everything.
I wonder how many kids that have used Chromebooks in school, when they leave, they're just like, screw it, I'll just buy a new Chromebook.
I don't know, but that would be a really interesting number, because I bought the Chromebook for not quite meetings, because if I'm in a meeting, they're usually like this, right? So I'm just on my PC. But I bought my Chromebook for when I'm at events, because it lasts like 16 hours or whatever ridiculous amount of time. And I usually just need it for like note taking or reading off a Google Doc. And then on top of that, it's £200. And I'm at an expo, so if something happens, like, it's no big deal.
And you can get all those crazy kind of like Acer flips and all that sort of stuff now if you need sort of tablets and all sorts of stuff. And there is actually Chrome OS. Was it Acer that had a Chrome OS tablet?
Yeah,
the other week?
Chrome OS Tab something. But the most interesting part of that for me was, A, it costs the same as an iPad, and B, that's actually just the start of a wave of Chrome OS tablets expected to launch. So I don't know. I think the Android app support means that I can see that being something that makes more sense, because Android on tablets is frankly terrible.
I haven't seen anybody try and defend it. It's just absolutely terrible.
Like I can bash Apple's UI on iPads in the sense that, like, the home screen, like the what's it called, Springboard, like the Springboard home screen, like, because if you have like the massive iPad Pro, it's still 5x5, but with massive gaps.
Terrible.
Like, I can bash that, but the rest of it works great. And the swipe up being different things on different devices kind of sucks. But I really hope that's something they'll fix in, iOS 12. Is that the next one? 12?
Yeah. Good guess.
I was like, I think it's 12.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't look likely. It looks likely that they've canned all the changes that they were going to make to Springboard. I just hope they do something, like you say, on the iPad Pros, because it's still ridiculous. There's so much wasted space on there. But the real beauty of it is the app ecosystem, as they call it. There's still just ridiculous amounts of companies that either develop just for iOS, and don't even consider anything else, or iOS first, or there isn't any just comparison between the features on the apps from one to another. And I don't really know how you'd fix it. I think a lot of companies are kind of scared of the openness of Google.
Yeah.
Because I presume you can't charge a lot for applications and talk about subscriptions and stuff when there is the possibility that people just get your app for free anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, and I've seen companies try to implement forms of DRM, and they've worked to varying success. I think the one thing that has helped, and I think maybe Google needs to promote this more, and I think that what would kind of help with this is you have the option of returning an app within an hour or 30 minutes or something of purchasing it.
Yeah.
And I think if Google pushed that as a try before you buy, as opposed to a if you really hate it, you can return it, I think that might be a good way of going about it, because there are apps that are free downloads, and then you get in and it's like, oh yeah, cool, now make a $2.99 in-app purchase so you can actually use the app now.
Yeah, pretty much. You used to be able to get away with that quite often. I think the EU legislation was the iOS App Store. You could return stuff and just basically ask for a refund within 14 days. But Apple quickly closed that loophole down, and just there's like a pop-up now whenever you download something. It's like, if you download this, you are waiving your right to like 14-day exchanges or refunds or whatever. So they kind of quickly did that. But yeah, I suppose the good thing is iOS has the options for kind of like freemium stuff. So a lot of things, take for example like Bear, one of the more popular kind of note-taking apps.
Right.
It gives you like you can download it and use it completely limitless for like 2 weeks, and then after that it's up to you. Do you know what I mean? And more things should be like that, because quite a lot of things like Things and all those sorts of things are like £20 for the app, and people just won't spend that. And you try and do that on Android, and people are just going to go, meh, I'll pirate it to test it out, quote unquote, and then just use the pirate.
Yeah.
And there's ways and means to get around everything, isn't there? I know, was it Clash of Clans or whatever used to use, like, where it used to ping a server to check that your installation was correct and all that sort of stuff. But if you're reasonably tech savvy, you can get around that, can't you?
Yeah, and then there were things like using... I'm not sure if this is a thing on iOS anymore, but it used to be where apps would use their own purchasing servers, like instead of pinging back to Apple's server. Because if you were jailbroken, you could spoof the Apple server. So you'd use your jailbroken app to pretend you made in-app purchases, and it would throw up a fake like payment confirmed from Apple, and it would go, oh yeah, cool. So apps started using their own IAP servers. And I'm not sure if that's still prevalent on iOS, but I think it is on Android.
Not entirely sure, to be honest.
But there are a couple of developers who do that on Android. And then it is sort of... I don't know how they handle subscriptions, to be completely honest with you, outside of getting you to... I think my biggest experience of this is Pocket Casts, because it is my favorite podcasting app, and I have it for both the Windows version and for my phone. And both of those, like, I paid for it through my PC. Like, I didn't... It's not like I went into the app and I was like, oh yeah, make for $4.99 or whatever I paid for it for the mobile version. So I'm not sure about that. And then, you know, subscription services... I know that companies like Spotify have tried to get away from the Apple subscription thing, because they take whatever it is, like 20% or something.
Yeah, 20% in the first year, yeah.
So I know that Spotify have gone, actually, instead of purchasing it through your phone, you can click this link and it'll take you to the website, and you can do it through there. And I think
I do that with a lot of things. I mean, something like 1Password and all that sort of stuff. If you just load up the website and save yourself a bit of money, but unfortunately most people, and it's spectacularly easier to do it through Apple Pay, because you just kind of put your fingerprint on the thingy or scan your face and pay for it. Yeah,
it's a difficult one. It's good to see that PayPal are trying something similar with their One Touch thing. I'm not sure if it's available on iOS or not, but because PayPal can access the fingerprint scanner on... I assume it works on iOS.
I presume you can still do it exactly the same. There's no reason why they couldn't authenticate through Face ID or Touch ID.
Yeah, you just kind of tap the fingerprint scanner and it pays for it through PayPal. And then, so actually, whilst we're talking about the subject of payments, something I found really peculiar, they've done this, Google have been rebranding. I've seen it misreported in a couple of places, which is why I want to mention it, because they've changed Android Pay to Google Pay. And
again,
that's basically been changed.
Just rename it. Wasn't it? Oh no, it was Google Wallet before, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Google Wallet, and then it was Android Pay, and now it's Google Pay. And they've done the same thing with their Wear OS app. So it went from Android Wear to Google Wear or Wear OS, depending on what watch you have. And the app is more or less the same, but it's now called Wear OS. And I think this is related to the cross-platform availability of all of the Google stuff where they don't want to be tied to Android anymore, because
I guess so. Yeah.
calling it Android Wear, because I think it was something like 1/3 of all Android Wear.
Yeah.
Wear
Using an
OS
iPhone, yeah.
watches are on iPhone, so calling it Android Wear doesn't quite fit the bill. And then
No,
with Google Pay,
you do use that. You're almost tied in with those green bubble people. I mean, that's Android. That's what that means. You're just like, ugh, green bubble texters. Ugh.
yeah.
Actually, no. I best not mention messaging apps to somebody that uses Android, should I?
Oh, they're so
there's
they're
another
on
10 from Google.
I just use. You know what? This is probably the only reason I don't use it right now is because Facebook broke it. But up until now, I'd been using Facebook Messenger for my texts and my Facebook messages. Right? So Facebook know everything about me.
Well, to be fair, Facebook probably know everything about everybody, regardless of what you're using. But yeah, Jesus Christ. I was trying to explain this to my other half the other day, because she's a massive Facebook user, and she was just like, yeah, so. I just don't think that normal people care. You know what I mean? This blatantly, I think everybody, if you listen to this podcast, you know that Facebook's like the scum of the earth. They're just like trolling everything, scraping all the data. I think they probably know more about you than the NSA do. But I just don't think normal people are bothered. I just don't think they care. I was trying to explain it to the other thing. It's not one of those things that's kind of like broken through into everyday news yet.
Yeah, and it's the title of this episode is called "I don't want to defend I hate to be the one defending Facebook." And the reason I titled it is because I came up with a title like last week, but they've done some things this week, so I'm not going to be defending Facebook. But before they'd done that, before they did all the scumbaggy stuff, when they were just leaking people's information left, right, and center, like it seemed kind of blown out of proportion in the sense that, because there was the Cambridge Analytica have all of your information kind of deal, and the thing about that for me was you were technically agreeing to it, like the fact you didn't.
Yeah,
because it tells you.
Yeah, it was one of those terms and conditions things, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's not like they were literally like leaking your data to them. Like it was, you'd get the little, because I know the notifications are terrible, and it's sometimes really unclear to see like what you are giving up, right? Because sometimes it will be like, we're going to give them your email address and first name, and you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then sometimes it's, we're going to give them all of your information, and the two screens look practically identical until you look at the fine print. But it was,
I mean, it was if I'm right in remembering, it was a Facebook like app on the website, wasn't it?
It was a quiz, a Facebook quiz.
Used to play like Farmville and all that sort of stuff on Facebook. And I think the privacy stuff was spectacularly less stringent then. So yes, it was technically something that people agreed to. However, they've just kind of provided them all the data and carried on providing them all the data. I mean, you look at something like Nilay Patel at The Verge was saying, obviously, when they had a Verge app back in the day, like 2013, 2014, I think it was. One of the ways to sign in was like a social sign in. So you just go sign in with Facebook and whatever. And they went to check their app because they're sunsetting it. And they were like, holy crap, look at all this people's data, because like it's never been switched off. Do you know what I mean? So I wonder how many people signed up for something 10 years ago and are not aware that they're still giving out their data.
I actually used it as an excuse to sort of, I didn't delete my Facebook, but I like purged everything within my Facebook. So I unliked. It doesn't matter.
They still, Facebook still know everything.
Yeah, I know that Facebook knows it.
There's a couple of documentaries on Netflix where the guys like ask for their data, and even stuff that you've kind of, even statuses that you've like half typed in and then gone, oh no, screw it, and deleted it. Like they know the information. They know that you were gonna put that on Facebook.
I actually downloaded my Facebook data completely unrelated to the whole, like this was about a month ago. So this was before the whole Facebook story broke. Like I just randomly downloaded my Facebook data because I'm a internet nerd who does weird stuff. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Does that give you the ability to go back and then just like easily delete stuff?
It doesn't. No, it just gives you like it gives you like the HTML, like it basically gives you a download of your Facebook profile.
Right. Okay.
So it'll be like, please wait 15 minutes or whatever, and we'll send you an email once it's ready to download. And I'm not sure where I saved it.
Because everybody goes on about Google and collecting data and stuff like that, but if you go into their privacy tools now, it gives you the ability to just kind of go, no, I don't want you to know this, I don't want you to know that. But whether it actually deletes other servers is a different question. But to show how they should have done it correctly, Google is actually doing a pretty good job.
And Facebook allows you to delete. They have like I forget what it's called, like an activity tab or like a timeline tab. It's called something like that, where it gives you like a list of everything you've ever done on Facebook, and you can delete it through there, but you have to delete each item individually.
Yeah, which people are not going to bother.
No. So I actually have a browser extension that I had to keep running for 2 days because there was so much stuff that it had. Because first, like, had to scan the whole thing because I only wanted to delete anything that wasn't a status update or something. Or no, I only wanted to delete status updates that were more than a year old.
Right.
That's what it was. And I did this for my Twitter as well quite recently, where I deleted anything that was more than 3 months old, because realistically, like, normal people aren't going to be looking at my Twitter like for tweets that were more than 3 months old.
You're just scared you're going to become famous, aren't you? And then people are going to go back in time and do everything like they do to Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing, yeah. But, like, you know, the only people looking more than 3 months back are people who are either looking to make me look bad, or B, like, potential job interviews or something. And the fact that in 2011 I tweeted about how much I love the color blue isn't relevant. Well, I still love the color blue just because you can tell by the color of everything on this channel. And it's just not relevant.
That job at EasyJet's just gone right out the window now.
That's it. No more EasyJet. That's it. That's done. But yeah, it was just like, there's nothing there that I look at and go, oh yeah, that's worth keeping. Like, I also have a download of my old tweets, and they're definitely me looking at them going, I can't believe I tweeted that and thought I was cool. Like,
oh yeah,
because
there was a craze a couple of years ago of using Time Hop. Do you remember Time Hop?
Oh, of course.
It's like an app.
There are people who still use it, like in my social circles. Yeah.
It used to pop up like every day, and just like, at 6 years ago you did this, and I was just like, I don't want to be reminded of that. Thank you. Delete.
Yeah, so I've got a HTML version of all my tweets, and then there are things like, let me see if there's anything spectacularly embarrassing, because most of these are just links to like blog posts I wrote.
Yeah.
Most back when that was.
I would say if I went back and did mine. I mean, I whatever they call it, deactivated my Facebook ages ago, and I hadn't used it for months and months and months and months and months. And I spoke about this on the Bring Your Own Device podcast, which you all should subscribe to, by the way.
Yes,
I
you should.
have actually started.
What I will say really quickly, sorry to interrupt, but I have actually been listening to it since you were first on. I can show you it actually, because I have, if I pull up my phone, there are 12 podcasts I'm subscribed to, one of which is my own, technically. But I love how the moment it tries to focus on my screen.
Device.
But yeah, it's also, you know, top right. You know, I actually use it. I think I mentioned this to you in a message, but I use it to kind of keep me grounded in the world of iOS because it is almost literally my only source of iOS information.
Oh, George.
Because, like, you know, unless it is Apple release a new iPhone, like, I don't hear.
Just don't care.
It's not even that I don't care. It's that I try not to make my Twitter an echo chamber, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm subscribed to. I follow like The Verge and stuff. So I try my best. But when I'm actively looking for news on Samsung or, you know, Huawei or whoever, like, I'm not usually actively looking for Apple news. So the BYOD podcast gives me the equivalent of sort of actively looking for news myself without having to.
Good. Yeah, we spoke about Facebook quite a while. I've actually started using it a little bit just recently, and only for the fact that we were looking for builders and they all only had Facebook pages.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to like activate my Facebook page. It has not changed in like the year that I have not been using it. And I'm waiting for the builder to do it also, like finish whatever he's doing so I can delete it again, because I am
Yeah.
so much happier without using that cesspool of stuff. But I've always had. We've always known, as in the royal we, the kind of technology sphere, we've always known that Facebook has been a bit untoward, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've always known that their ethics are very, very questionable. I mean, at one stage on iOS, they were playing silent audio, so to keep the app in the foreground. So
Yep.
I'm presuming so it could do something that it wasn't supposed to be doing, and that was something that was relatively obvious for somebody to spot, because I had it exactly myself when I did use Facebook. I'd be listening to something on my headphones, open Facebook, and the audio on the headphones would be like half the thing, and I'm just like, no audio is playing. And even when you close the app, it would still carry on. So we've
Right.
always known that these ethics and stuff were very, very questionable, and it doesn't take much digging to find out that most of this stuff has been related to adverts. There's an excellent book by I can't remember the guy's name, called Chaos Monkeys.
Right.
And it was by a guy that was basically that started all this kind of ad tech at Google. His company was acquired in good old Silicon Valley sort of style, and he left because he just didn't like the way that Facebook were using his kind of inventions and code and stuff going forward. But I don't think we ever really knew the scale of what they were doing, and ultimately something which seems pretty trivial, collecting people's data, has been used to influence elections, and there's no two ways about it. It's been used to do it not only in the US, but I solely believe that it was detrimental to the Brexit vote.
Yeah.
No offense to anybody that voted to leave. That's. I don't want to don't at me. Do you know what I mean? I don't care what you voted.
Direct all your hate at Paul Stubbers. I'm sure he can take it.
I don't care what you voted, but these sorts of information, it's not useless information. Fair enough, it's not going to be sold to hackers that can hack into your account, but if personality profiles is something that politicians and stuff can use to influence elections, then we all have a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was a really bizarre cycle of events where it started at Facebook kind of denying it, me like, no, that's almost impossible to do on Facebook. Like, political adverts, yeah, right. And then they went, okay, so maybe there were like one or two of them. And then they went, no, wait, yeah, there was quite a lot of them. Yeah, that happened frequently.
Yeah. Yeah, we only really knew, and I only really took it seriously when I think we were recording the podcast or something. No, actually, I was in the pub, the good old English pub with a friend, and I was just like, holy crap, the police are at Cambridge Analytica in London.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it kind of just exploded from there, because it all became very real after then. And then Facebook started to backtrack and go, well, actually, it turns out that they might have had some data, but we told them not to a couple of years ago, and they assured us they deleted it all. And it's just spiraled into something where, I don't know whether you'll agree, George, but it's clear to me that Mark Zuckerberg is just not a very good CEO of a company this size.
I can't say he's a bad one outside of quite a few really damning pieces of, outside of all the things he's done wrong, he hasn't done anything wrong. But he hasn't done anything to, come across as a great CEO.
No.
But no, it's bizarre because there was the situation a couple of days ago where there were people trying to pressure him to either resign as CEO, or I forget what the other thing was. They were like, either resign or something else, and he just said no. He was like, nope, staying. There's nothing you can do about it. And then,
but none of his answers to kind of questions have ever been. He's never done anything meaningful. Do you know what I mean? This is the time where someone like a Sundar Pichai or someone like that kind of shows strong leadership and kind of affects the turn of events, and he just kind of shied away and just didn't really answer any questions, and just kind of, well, he actually lied to some of the questions, and they've gone back and deleted some of his messages or something on Facebook I was reading today.
Yeah, so this wasn't just Zuckerberg. I think the case being mentioned specifically is they're talking about just Zuckerberg, but this was actually something that they did for most of their board members, where over the last couple of years, board members were able to delete Facebook messages from the recipient's point of view. So currently, if I send you a message and I delete it, like, it will get rid of it on my phone, but it stays on yours, right?
Yeah.
So what Facebook executives were able to do was they had like a switch that would go from delete from mine to delete from Facebook servers, essentially.
Okay.
So, you'd send someone a message, you go, oh, wait, I didn't mean to send that. You hit delete, and it deletes on both ends.
Right.
So they've been stripped of this ability as of, whenever it was, like last week. And partially because it broke their own terms of service. And also because apparently this is a feature they're bringing. Like, this is clearly how they decided to, cover themselves. It was, we're going to bring the feature to all users later this year. So we've decided that until we bring it to everyone else, we're not going to let the board members use it until then. They haven't broken any rules. Like, they were essentially beta testing this tool.
Yeah,
like,
they were just testing it. I guess it kind of makes sense, doesn't it, their ability to be able to do that? I'm presuming they use Facebook to communicate internally and all that sort of stuff. And I can kind of see where they're coming from. I mean, if they send the wrong information to the wrong person or whatever, they can just kind of go, nope, never happened. But clearly they were using it for purposes other than that, weren't they?
Yeah, and it was so it was Facebook executives who could, and I quote, delete their own messages from other people's messenger inbox, which is always fun. It's a feature.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, and actually I think they have something similar that is a bug and not a feature, because I mentioned Facebook breaking their SMS thing. What's happened is I now can't see any text messages through the Facebook Messenger app unless it's the most recent thread. So all other SMS messages just disappear. Like, I can see it through any other messenger app. So I'm just using the built-in Huawei text messaging app now. But it's really bizarre where I sort of, I'd go to find a text message. I'm like, where'd it go? What? And so I'd go into the regular messages and there it was. I can imagine that
was just Mark Zuckerberg just going,
yep.
Give me that data.
Yeah. Maybe
like,
that's...
quick, put it back. He's looking for it, put it back.
Oh man! And then it only got worse as this is something that happened in 2004 and was reported by Business Insider in like 2010, but I found it sort of resurfacing recently, where in 2004 Mark Zuckerberg broke into a Facebook user's private email account to see what they were saying about him.
Wow!
And the way he got in was what was so terrifying. Because this is in 2004, so Facebook's passwords were encrypted, I like to hope. But what wasn't encrypted and what they stored in plain text was failed password attempts.
Wow.
So what he did is he looked at this user's failed password attempts. It would not
take a genius to work out
what
the actual password was, wasn't it?
Well, not even that. It wasn't that. They actually used like a different password for their email and for their Facebook. Yeah. So, if the first time you type in your password, like, when this is back when I used LastPass, but, I'd type in a password and be like, oh no, because I had like a set of 5 passwords I'd use for everything.
You're like, oh no, that's not my Gmail one, that's my Twitter one or whatever.
Yeah. So what he did is, this person had, mistyped in the password for her email instead of her Facebook account, and, just kind of copy and pasted that and went, oh cool, I'm in her email.
Oh my God. Oh, yeah, it's I can imagine this is just the tip of the iceberg of stuff that's gone on in if they're willing to do this kind of thing to users. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I know it's dramatized, but also The social network didn't exactly shine Mark Zuckerberg in the kindest of lights.
No, I guess not. Yeah, a lot of people go on about this like Silicon Valley, like programmer sort of way of life, isn't it? Really, it's not even like a personality. I'm hoping that this kind of shines a light on things, and people like Uber and Facebook and all those people with more than questionable ethics just can't get away with this sort of thing anymore. Did you see where they were collecting data from Android users' phones with like call history and text messages and everything like that, even though they hadn't technically said, back in the day where the permissions were just like all or nothing?
Yes.
I can't for the life of me remember what it was. I think it was like Kit Kat or something around there, wasn't it, where they changed
there
it?
was a point where they went from and then they changed it again in Oreo from being, instead of, because even it wasn't all or nothing anymore, but it was like as you installed it, it would tell you everything, as opposed to being able to what iOS does really well is the first time it tries to use it, it tells you it's trying to use this.
And I think Android does that now, doesn't it?
Yes, it does that now.
As you go along, it's just like, would you like me to use your location? And then you get a choice. And then if you try to take a picture, it kind of says, are we allowed to access your camera? And that kind of makes sense at the time, doesn't it? Because I remember using phones before, and you put and a lot of the time the Facebook app was like pre-installed.
Yes.
So it already had kind of system permissions and stuff already.
Mm-hmm. It was pre-installed on this. And the only reason I noticed is because I don't use the Facebook app. So not only was it pre-installed, but the app itself wasn't pre-installed. It was, let me pull this up right now. If I go into my apps, because I was able to delete the app, which confused me because I was like, I didn't install it, so I'm not sure why it was there, but I could delete it, so it wasn't a system app. So I did some further digging, and they don't actually pre-install the app. They pre-install, hang on, let me find the name, because I had to disable this separately to stop it from coming back. It was called like Facebook Stub or something. So it was clearly just like a Facebook installer.
Yeah. So there's a system element that obviously just grabs the latest app when you first turn it on or something, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? And obviously back in the day when you first signed into Facebook Messenger, it was like, would you like to grant me permissions? And it was just like everything. And if you didn't agree to even part of it, I think at one time or another you could kind of bodge it on some of the cyanogen releases, I think, that would kind of half break it. But basically, if you wanted to use the app, you had to give them permission to just do what they like.
Yeah.
And quite a lot of people have downloaded their Facebook data and just gone, how the hell do they know all this? Because it's just actually like text message threads, telephone calls, locations, all that sort of stuff. There's a good podcast from Reply All about like, is Facebook spying on you? And there's this kind of what's become almost like an urban legend that people seem to think that Facebook's listening through the microphone and then advertising whatever you do it. And it's a bit of a black box. Facebook will never tell you like why this advert's being shown to you, but they kind of make a good estimation and speak to people that used to work there, which is quite a good thing. Which turns out they're not spying on your microphone because technically they don't need to. You should be more worried about everything else.
Yeah, like we could, but it would actually make our algorithm less efficient, so we decided not to.
Yeah, exactly. And it always makes me laugh when people are just like, I'm not using Facebook anymore. Facebook's bad, whilst messaging on WhatsApp and
Instagram,
uploading a story to Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't use Facebook because I'm bothered about the my data. I don't use Facebook because it's a cesspool and it makes me sad.
Yeah, I have.
You know what I mean?
I have two. It actually wasn't one. It was two. So there's Facebook App Installer and Facebook App Manager. So I think one just sets it up initially and one updates it automatically. But yeah, and the Facebook app has actually started doing that by itself as well. This was back before I deleted it, where the Facebook app was able to update itself without going through the Google Play Store.
Wow.
So because it was able to write over its own code, basically. So it would download the update and basically,
You can't even make this stuff up.
It's ridiculous, yeah. And
so basically, you were installing an app that obviously was scanned by whatever they call. What do Google call their little
Play Protect, I believe.
Play Protect.
Yeah.
But then it was just going directly over your internet connection and just downloading. It could be essentially a completely different app that's got completely different permissions and it can do whatever it likes.
Yeah, luckily it
Wow.
does actively scan apps as once like even it scans it whilst they're on your phone. So
Right.
it
Okay.
will scan them at like once a week or whatever, so they can't
So it's
completely
not
recode
possibly
the
so it's
device.
possibly not as bad as it seems, but
It's
it's
still not
just
good. Like, because
no.
the idea of server-side updates in general just irk me. Because
Mm.
the fact that, because I think the Snapchat update was the one that reminded me of this, because I hadn't thought about it in a while, because a lot of applications haven't really done any major updates in a long time until Snapchat.
Yeah,
But
well done, Snapchat.
yeah, good job Snapchat making everyone hate you. Good job, good job. Are you aware of how bad their Android app is and how bad their excuse for how bad their Android app is?
Yes, only because I was listening to a podcast the other day, something to do with they can't be asked to code for every single Android phone, basically. So they just take a screenshot of the viewfinder
Yeah,
on
so
the camera.
they take a screenshot of a viewfinder, but the funny thing is that this is like 4 or 5 years ago. Google actually has an API for accessing the camera that works on essentially all Android devices. Like I think
Yeah.
it's harder. I think it might be exclusively the Huawei phones that doesn't work with, because they use their Kirin processor, and it might not work with the
Right.
Exynos Samsungs. But anything that uses a Samsung uses a Snapdragon processor, uses the Camera 2 API. And so I'm just sitting here thinking that is a really terrible excuse. And not only that, but Instagram before that was bought by Facebook had great camera integration on Android. So it's not like it's impossible in the same way that Snapchat being like it's literally impossible to support all of the cameras on Android. Like it's not.
No, it's definitely not. And it might have been 10 years ago, but like you say, most of the APIs and stuff. And I'm sure if you went to Samsung and just like, look, can we have access to your camera? They would be like, yes, Snapchat, no problem at all. Because what we don't want is Snapchat to not run on our phones.
Because I think it might. Because I know that it actually works on the Pixel 2 and maybe the S9 and S9 Plus. Because it is coded properly for a couple of Android devices, but for everything that isn't Pixel and maybe Samsung flagships, it just takes
isn't phones that possibly the development team might own.
Right, I think that might literally be it. Yeah, the two Android developers, one has a Pixel, one has a Samsung, and they're just like, oh, cool. Oh man,
good old Snapchat.
It is.
They could have been owned by Facebook by now. What a world we would live in.
Oh man, that would have been terrible. Frankly, I feel like if Snapchat was owned by Facebook, I wouldn't have bought the sunglasses because I think you're aware of the fact that I own spectacles. You know their video sunglasses.
You and probably 4 other people in the UK. Yeah.
I was actually. I
remember when they used to be on eBay for like ridiculous money, and now you can basically just like get people that will just give them to you.
Yeah, they were. I was literally the first person to buy them in the UK, because I received a tip off like the day before they brought out the vending machine, which it being.
I was going to say, did you go one to those weird vending machine things?
Yeah, it was via the vending machine.
Let me guess, it was in London somewhere.
Yeah, do you want to know the best part? Because this is Snapchat. They had some form of a sense of humor. It was right next to the London Eye. Because they're sunglasses. I remember like getting the tip off the day before, like, hey, by the way, Snapchat are gonna release the vending machine tomorrow at 2 p.m. or whatever, and I was like, oh, cool, where? And they were like just next to me at London Eye, and like the moment it hit me, I was like, oh, please tell me you're kidding. Please tell me that was just a terrible joke.
So what? You just queued up? Or you just randomly wandered around and were just like, that looks like a vending machine?
No, so they had balloons attached to the top so you could see it from a distance. So it's quite easy to find. And I turned up like half an hour before, because they didn't actually announce it until like 5 minutes before it was turned on. Because they turned it on at like 2 p.m. or whatever. And I turned up at like 11:30 or something, and I was the only one there. So I bought a pair, and then as I left, there was actually quite a queue, and there were some members of Snapchat staff because they have an office in the UK,
Right.
So all the staff were wandering around, and I'm not I never checked, but they did take a picture of me like buying them and like opening them. So I might be all over the Snapchat socials and not be aware of this.
You should have done what everybody else did and buy like 3 pairs and then sell them to the people at the back of the queue.
The queue wasn't even that long. I'll be completely honest with you. The queue was like 10 people, and buying them took like 2 minutes.
David Pierce at I think he was at Wired at the time, bought some for like $1,400 or something stupid like that. Because obviously at the time it was like the hot thing, wasn't it, that you couldn't get hold of. But
there was a point where I'd have paid double. There was a point where I'd have paid like 200 for them, maybe 250. But yeah,
I'm just going to shake my head in disgust.
Well, the thing for me is I've actually been using it they've made it really easy to export them out of Snapchat.
Right.
Because when it first came out, it was really hard to get the videos out of Snapchat. And the easiest way to do it was to actually, if you had a rooted device, you could go into the directory where it was imported into and literally just copy and paste the files out.
Yep.
So they've now made it way easier to export the video. And I actually use it, well, I don't use it. My dad used it while skiing a bunch, where A, they function as sunglasses, and B, they function kind of like a GoPro. So he had them on and he used them. And, they're cool, and I do use them occasionally. And when I bought them with the justification in my head of they're also technically the second most expensive sunglasses I own. And because I have like
it's an investment.
Not even that. It was just like it's not like a smartwatch where if it breaks, like, or if my smartwatch runs out of battery, like, cool, it's now just a random weight I have on my wrist.
Yes.
They
do actually still work as sunglasses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like worst case scenario. I've spent £130 on a pair of sunglasses, which still makes them my number 2 sunglasses.
I guess it's not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things, is it? But
I've seen
did you buy black ones?
Yes, yeah, I got the black ones.
Good, because if you bought yellow ones, I was just gonna shake my head even more.
No, I'm not extroverted enough to rock yellow spectacles. It was.
I once got a pair of bright yellow Coca-Cola like promo sunglasses given to me, and I rocked those for all of about 4 seconds.
Yeah,
and then I threw them in the bin. It's just like yellow sunglasses. Nope.
I got a pair of bright red Nissan sunglasses and did the exact same thing, where I rocked them for about 5 minutes, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm done here. Just chucked them.
that moment in time where you're just like, yeah, I could totally pull these off, and then you catch yourself in the mirror and you're just like, yeah, I look stupid.
Mm-hmm. And it's such an instant thing because usually there is that buffer, right? Because there is a 0% chance. Actually, no, there is a 1% chance that you look back at a picture of yourself from a year ago and go, why did I ever think I looked good like that? It'll be like a t-shirt that you used to own. You're like, why did I ever wear that t-shirt? It looks terrible, right? Somehow,
all the time,
bright yellow sunglasses bring up that like 1 year effect within 10 seconds, where you look at them and go, why did I think I was rocking these like 5 seconds ago? I'm an idiot here.
Yeah,
and just chuck them.
Why did these even make it onto my face? I should have just looked at them and just gone, no.
Oh man.
So, George, you've mentioned about 14,000 times you have a Huawei phone.
Yeah.
If it's a P20 Pro in Twilight, I'm just ending the podcast now.
It's not in Twilight. It's not in Twilight because Vodafone only has them in black.
Yeah.
So it's not
everywhere else at the minute.
Oh, is it?
Where can you buy a Twilight one from?
China, probably.
Probably.
I'm not sure they actually brought it to the UK, to be completely honest with you, because I know they have a couple of variants. It's also not in the US because God knows you can't buy Huawei phones in the US anymore.
Oh yeah, this fear of Huawei, it's like the new red fear, isn't it? I just don't get it. I don't get it. This American thing of Chinese companies. But so you've got a black one, have you?
Yeah, I'm going for the black one. So I currently have the Mate 10 Pro, which I bought merely 2 weeks ago. So I bought it intentionally 2 weeks ago because I knew the P20 Pro was coming, And I was due an upgrade, and my S7 Edge is absolutely demolished. I'm not sure if it's up here or not. No, it's downstairs. I broke it just before I went to Georgia for 3 months, so it was completely shattered. There was like a bright red line running down the screen, where a couple of shards of glass were like pressing on the display and causing some distortion.
Yeah.
And so in my head, I was like, you know what, screw it. I'll get the Mate 10 Pro. If I really like the P20 Pro, then I'll just call up Vodafone because I'm still within my 30 days, and I'll just exchange them. If not, then I'll keep this. And so, Huawei were announcing the P20 Pro, and it was okay. And then the camera was just unignorably amazing looking. And so, because I use my phone for photography, the only reason I got this was because of the cameras. Over, most other relatively budget Android devices. Because this is now like £530. This is a bargain.
All right. Oh, God.
Because I'd been considering getting the S9 Plus. But that thing is like 900 quid or whatever. So this at RRP was £170 cheaper, and then they knocked off another 170. And I was like, well, I can't justify paying £340 for the S9 over this. So I went for this instead. And then, so the P20 Pro, I saw the cameras, and then the thing that snatched it for me, and I know that you and Nathan were joking about this in the BYOD podcast, but the notch hide mode was the thing that snatched it for me. That was genuinely like, there was that moment of like, oh, cool, I can hide the notch. I'm going to get it then.
As you'll be aware, George, I've termed this the gingerbread toggle.
Yes.
Because it instantly turns your Android into a gingerbread phone.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about the notch.
A nice black status bar. I don't get it. There's two things, basically. One, they're either saying that this was the right choice. Apple have just out-designed everybody else, and by putting this notch in the screen is the best way to go. Or two, they can't design anything, so they're just going to copy Apple. One of those things has got to be true.
Yeah, and the thing that I find interesting is that if you could make the argument that they're technically copying Essential, right? Right?
No, you can't. No. It looks completely different.
Because you could. I mean, I don't know what the.
I see that every time. I think it was Tom Warren that was on about something earlier on, and literally one of the first replies to every single tweet is like, "Well, technically, the Essential phone did it first." Like, no. And in actual fact, I'd think more of you if you'd done it like the Essential phone, because it actually looks better.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And I don't know why. I guess so. I understand why it's slightly wider than it is on the Essential phone, because Essential like hid the speaker on top of the camera, like above it.
Yeah.
So if you like look at it, the top glass isn't actually flush with the edge because there's a cutout in the glass for it. So I understand why it's slightly wider. And if they'd not mentioned the iPhone whilst announcing this phone, I'd be like, okay, I kind of understand.
They made a massive deal out of it, didn't they? They were like, it's 20% smaller than the iPhone notch. I'm like, right, so why didn't you make it 100% smaller than the iPhone and not do it?
Yeah.
Because nobody thinks that is a good design. I hate it. What I would give to get rid of this stupid notch on the top of my phone.
Yeah, so it's just... Yeah, if they'd made zero mention of the iPhone 10, I would be like, oh, the phone has been in design for a year, and Essential doing it as a let's see how much bezel we can get rid of, and even that argument doesn't quite hold true because they decided for whatever reason to put the fingerprint sensor on the front. Which is
bizarre.
Yeah, because it's right on this for the record.
The two kind of things together are just, I mean, the bezels aren't exactly the smallest thing in the world. It's got a notch in the screen, and then it's got a gigantic bezel at the bottom. I mean, do one or the other. Do you know what I mean? Why put the fingerprint scanner on the front of the phone with a physical button and then take a notch out of the screen? It just seems weird. It just screams to me dragging on the coattails. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's one of those things, and then put a toggle in there to hide it if you want to. If you're going to make these sort of design decisions, just own it. And that's one of the things that I kind of half appreciate with Apple. They were just like, no, there's a notch, get over it.
Yeah. It's interesting because from my point of view, at least, I know that I'd have found that, there have been a million apps that pop up that allow you to hide the notch, right?
Yep.
In the same way that there are a million apps that pop up to disable the Bixby button.
And there's actually quite a few apps on the App Store to put a notch in your screen, which seems bizarre to me. I don't understand it.
I downloaded that app. It's because it's called 10 out of 10, but the first 10 is an X, right? Because it's X out of 10.
Yeah.
And I remember downloading that like on my S7 Edge, like just to like make
just because.
Yeah, just because. I ran it for a day until I was like, okay, that's enough of making this joke. Like I'm done here. Because I think what happened was it was the day after the iPhone 10 was announced, and I knew that my dad was going to be buying one, so I like downloaded the app, took a screenshot because it's present in screenshots, and sent to my dad, being like, "Hey, look, I have an iPhone 10 now. Look at the cool notch out the top of the screen."
And your dad blocked your number from then onwards.
Yep, that's why I'm not in the US right now, actually. My dad and my sister are currently having a tour. They went to LA, then Vegas, so they're basically traveling West Coast-ish, somewhere around there. I don't know. My US geography is not very good. I'm sure someone will hate me on Twitter, send me some death threats.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so we'll see how the P20 Pro looks. I'm just excited for the cameras, which again look kind of like the iPhone 10. But you know what? I'm beyond caring at this point. Like
they were just like, right, what could we do? I mean, to be fair, Huawei were one of the first ones to put two cameras in, weren't they? It was the P9, wasn't it, that had the black and white one and the stuff? And I think that might have been the last Android phone that I had. I did buy a Pixel not too long ago, which was terrible.
Yeah, I know that you used the Pixel 2 for, I think it was a week, right? If I recall correctly.
Yeah, my intention was to like,
because you're like, I really like the, because I just remember going from like one episode to the other, because I'd doubled up on episodes one week because I'd been traveling, so I knew that I needed a bunch of podcasts. I didn't listen to the podcast for 1 week, so one episode was like, I really like the squeeze to assist thing. Yep. And then the next week you're like, okay, cool, I got rid of the phone, I couldn't use it. I was just like, wait, what? That was a bit dramatic.
Yeah, I wanted to do this big Android experiment for a month and kind of write some long pieces about my thoughts and stuff. And after a few days, I was just like, no, screw this. But yeah, the P9 was actually quite nice. I liked it.
Yeah, I have a friend who uses the P10 Lite, and again, she really likes that. And this is quite good, and we'll see how the P20 goes. Huawei, Samsung, and Apple are in a unique position, where Samsung are less so because most of their devices use or at least all their US devices use the Snapdragon processors. But they're the only three companies who design their own processors. So Samsung has the Exynos chips, Huawei have Kirin, yeah, and then Apple have the A11 at this point. So they have this advantage where they can closer marry the hardware and software in a way that HTC or Lenovo or anyone else can't. So it's interesting when I see, Huawei's smart AI camera capture thing. Have you seen that? That is one of the most bizarre. I actually took a screenshot of this because I was taking a picture of my cat on this seat, and from a distance, because it can identify the subtleties between cats and dogs. Which I'm not sure why you need that, but apparently you need different photography conditions depending on what
it's a quintessential Chinese thing. It sounds like
one's food, the other is a pet. So,
oh, God. Oh dear. I'd like to point out that it was George that said that. Please don't at me.
Also, I lived in Hong Kong for 3 years, so I can kind of make that joke. I don't know. But so I'd take the picture from close up and it saw it as a cat, and you can tell it's a Chinese phone because I went to take a picture of the cat from a distance and it identified it as food. So oh man, but yeah, it's the shooting modes. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But I don't know how I feel about. I don't know how many cameras is too many cameras. I think it might be free.
I will not be happy until the whole back of the phone is filled with cameras, just at various focal lengths and apertures.
Oh, so you want one of those? What was the camera with like 27 lenses?
I can't remember that weird.
Oh, it was 16. Sorry, not 27.
16,
the Fujifilm XF-26.
Yes.
No, that's a lens. That's just a lens. Not even close. Wait for it. L16. The light L16. That's the one. Okay.
You could say anything at this point.
You're right. So the light L16 had 16 lenses on the back, which, frankly, isn't enough. Really, if we're thinking about it.
I think they could squeeze at least another couple in there and just make us entirely happy. To be fair, I can't remember the name of the company. It was a Israeli company that Apple purchased, and they were experimenting with. They'd got technology to marry up to like 6 lenses together,
right?
At various sort of light levels and stuff. So I don't think we've seen the end of kind of multiple lenses and stuff. But I always get the feeling that it's probably a bit of a gimmick. I don't really use. It's nice to have the kind of kind of fake proper zoom on it, isn't it? Because it's the only way we're going to get a proper optical zoom on a smartphone camera. So maybe there is room in there for 3 or 4 lenses with different sort of zoom things and stuff. Because let's be honest, most people now just use their phone, don't they? I think the point and shoot camera market, and I would imagine some of the DSLR market now has just been cannibalized by smartphones.
Yeah, and I know that Huawei's second lens, I think, because Apple's is 2 times, whereas Huawei went for 3 times. So they've kind of gone for that instead, which I think I personally preferred LG's approach, where instead of doing more zoomed in, they had a more
like a wide angle.
Yeah, the wide angle lens. Because there are very rarely occasions when I want to get something closer. Like the only time I could ever see myself using a 3 times zoom is at a concert.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of situations where you're like, oh, that's a great picture, but then when you take it on your phone camera, you're like twice the distance away you actually, it appears to be. So I guess it's getting you in a kind of more natural position, isn't it? I know there's obviously advantages to using DSLRs and stuff. The portrait stuff on smartphones is still not great, so that obviously you've got that sort of things. But the vast majority of DSLR users that I see anyway just use it in fully automatic mode, and it's just like almost like a willy waving contest to say, look, I've got this massive lens, I must be a professional.
Yeah, no, I take most photos in. Well, I take most photos in auto as well, purely because if I have my camera with me, it's there for video, not for photo. So if I'm taking a photo, 99% of the time it's with my phone. There are very rarely occasion. It's only if I ever want like the actual bokeh that I go for my, f1.7 25mm lens and set it up with manual focus and all that jazz. Like it has to be a very specific image I'm going for me to not just take my phone out my pocket and go, okay, cool, done.
Yeah. Because that's it, isn't it? I mean, the majority of the time, I know when I've been to sort of trade events and stuff before, most of the time you can just go click and that will do, because you can crop it down and mess around with it and stuff when you want to. It's only, like you say, when you need a specific shot or you've seen something pretty interesting that you get a tripod out and waste 40 minutes setting your camera up with the right lens and God knows what.
Yeah, it's it's a really bizarre willy waving contest as well. The fact that I know there was a point where, and I think I have a unique view on this because this is in Georgia at least. It's a country of very vain people, like just the entire country. It's a country of vain people who don't understand technology but think they understand technology.
Okay.
So there was a very long time until probably about a year ago where almost anyone in Georgia was of the thought process of higher megapixels guarantees better photos.
I think that was genuinely the average Joe's thoughts for many, many years. I know when I worked at Carphone Warehouse, they were just like, what's got the most megapixels?
And we're almost getting to a point where the camera doesn't actually matter. And that sounds odd, but if you sort of think about it, all of these companies have gotten to a point where they're competing on image processing as opposed to image taking, right?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Google have and some would say they do it best because they pull off bloody portrait mode of one camera using some form of magic, essentially.
Yeah, it is black magic. I believe that there's several sacrifices a day in data centers around the world to ensure that the Roman gods of aperture are able to reproduce these pictures.
I downloaded the app onto my S7 Edge just to try it, see what happens. It was ridiculously good because again, I was comparing it with an iPhone 10, and they side to side they looked effectively identical. And it was just ridiculous because, overall image quality was slightly lower on the S7 Edge, in part because it was 2 years old and in part because I've, broken it. Yeah. But the bokeh part of it was essentially identical. And it was just ridiculous to me that somehow Google does it with sort of one camera and effectively magic.
Yeah, it is. Most smartphone cameras now are good enough, aren't they? And pretty much choosing between them. I mean, one of the biggest YouTubers over here, Super Saf, does ridiculous videos comparing kind of galaxies to all sorts of stuff. And a lot of time it's just how you want your picture to look. We all know that Samsungs are going to be a bit punchy and probably a bit oversaturated. We all know the iPhone's probably going to look a bit muted, but probably more natural colors. And I think Google is probably somewhere in the middle, depending on what sort of picture you're taking.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of time, I think, before Google's ability gets to a point where it will know what type of pictures that you like and kind of changes the pictures that you take depending on like what you do. So I could snap exactly the same picture stood next to you, but it would tone it, say like I like more natural colors, but you like more like punchy stuff, and it would be the same image, but they would know through machine learning and all that sort of stuff what I prefer. Because there was a stage at one time where I think it was the Samsung phones, the images would look fantastic on the phone, and then when you actually took them off the phone and onto the computer, they looked terrible because obviously the screen was calibrated to make the pictures look great. Yeah. Because 9 times out of 10, people take a snap and go, "Oh, look at that! Isn't it great?" And then that's all it ever gets used for.
Yeah, we'll see what they do, and I think they probably figure out through the reading of your Gmail. I don't know. They're like, he sent his last 200 emails via his iPad. He clearly prefers the Apple color space.
Probably. That's one of the only things that I cannot get away from is Gmail.
Oh, it's terrible.
I mean, I'm really not bothered that they read the email as long as I can search for something really bizarre. Like the search is just crazy. A woman sent me an email about cats. So if I put in that and it just finds it. Just a really obscure search terms. You're like, I'm sure it was a Wednesday, and it was something about yellow, and it just appears. Do you know what I mean?
I have it with Google Docs because they use the same searching for all their documents, right? And they don't just search through the titles; they search through the actual contents. And I was like, I wrote this thing like 3 years ago, and I remember like half a sentence. So I started typing in the sentence I remembered, and it just threw it up like that. Yeah, I was like, that is crazy.
Yeah, that's the exchange, isn't it? If it's going to give me stuff like that, then fine. But if you're going to start making me a racist and vote Lee, oh shit, sorry, I went there, didn't I? If you're going to start affecting elections, then stop it.
Yeah. Paul says apparently he has some insider knowledge here because Google literally have a conveyor belt of goats being dropped into a volcano for all the black magic associated with their camera app.
Ah, right. Okay. Awesome. I'm presuming that came from some kind of people familiar with the matter.
Yes, I assume so.
That explains it then. Have they still demoed that? Was it at Google I/O last year where they showed that kind of baseball image where they, through machine learning, remove the fence from the image? Have they got to that stage yet?
I know the demo you're talking about, and I'm not sure. I know that Snapchat now does that, so if it does, it might just be that I've not seen it around. But you can do a very similar thing in Snapchat where, like, I'm not sure about like the fence specifically for that example, but I've used it to like get rid of like wires and stuff, and it does work very similar where you like sort of highlight the wire and it just gets rid of it.
Impressive.
So it is doable. I'm not sure if Google does it.
Well, they won't be able to do it much longer because their Google guy of AI has gone to work for Apple.
Yes.
For about 5 days, and then when he goes, "What the hell have I signed up for? I can't do anything."
Yeah, it'll be like, we need you to be as good as Google, but without any of the information.
Yes, you're not allowed to know anything about your user base. Yet you need to make sure that they can actually capitalize an I in a sentence and not put full stops everywhere.
Oh man, or just be able to. Was it the letter A? Was that the bug? Like,
it capitalized I to like a question mark and a weird I think it was an A and a question mark in a box or something bizarre.
That's the one.
I can't remember what it did it to.
But the way it happened was just hilarious. So.
It does it all the time now. It just capitalizes random words and all sorts of stuff. It's just, I hate it. Stop it. Stop this weird mathematical rubbish.
That's why I use SwiftKey. SwiftKey actually has this really good thing where, because it will, download, like names, and it'll download like trending topics onto your keyboard corrections. Yeah. But at any time, if you have any issues, you can like just reset it. So I had it quite recently where I get like really weird like sentences recommended to me, and then it'll also randomly at one point it would randomly change is to I'd. Like I''T, D, sorry. And I'm like, that is not, like, I get where you're going with this.
Yeah.
But that's not what I was going for. I can type is with 98% accuracy, especially because I type with the swipe most of the time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I'm pretty sure. And if you look in the context of this sentence, I'm pretty sure George is annoying makes more sense than George I'd annoying.
Yes.
The weird thing they've recently pushed out, this is currently in beta, is it has context analysis for your messages.
Okay.
So what it'll do is, because you type within SwiftKey, right? So you'll type a sentence, hit like the gimme emojis button, right? So if I like type hello into my phone right now, hit the gimme emojis button, and what it will do is it will read that sentence, figure out the sentiment, and try to suggest emoji to you. So it'll be like, you might want to use this emoji. Give it and so, it's useful when you're being, because this is in beta and it only came out like 2 days ago.
I can see that really ending in disaster. Someone somewhere is going to type just off to school, gun emoji.
Oh man.
That is asking for trouble.
Yeah. But it gives you kind of, because it just like reorders the emoji basically in context.
Right,
but it's just like, if it's something really explicit, right? Like I am annoyed. Of course, it gives you like the angry emoji first. But if you have something with a bit of subtlety in there, it just throws up random emojis and like it goes, I think you meant one of these.
No, I do not want a hot dog emoji.
We'll see how that evolves with the data, I guess. But yeah, we were discussing this on an episode ages ago where all apps no longer want to be apps; they want to be platforms.
Yes,
they want to do everything.
Yeah, it's all about the social.
Google did take actually on the subject of apps doing everything. Google took a step forward towards. I'm not sure if you ever had any issue with this. You might have, and it got me pretty close to annoyed at Android. The apps could like set custom lock screens. So you may not have ever had an issue with this.
Never come across that. No, the only thing that I ever like is the album art.
So the album art's cool.
Yeah, apps could set their own lock screens. That sounds like
Yeah.
a disaster.
So it was fine there was an app called SlideJoy, I believe it was. And you know how you can like get an Amazon app that's like an Amazon device for like 20 quid cheaper if you run ads on your lock screen?
Mm-hmm.
It was that kind of deal where it would run ads on your lock screen and you get like a percentage of the revenue. So that was kind of cool. And that gets to stick around because the purpose of the app is explicitly lock screen related. So that's fine.
Yes.
But what apps would do is they'd be like apps like there was a fake version of ES launcher called FS launcher. Not launcher, sorry, File Explorer. And what it would do is, it was a file explorer, and then you'd lock your phone. And when you go onto your lock screen, it was covered in ads, and they'd be promoting whatever, and
they should do the good old Windows days where you go to close the ad and the red cross moves. You have to like chase it around the screen.
Yeah. There are sites that still do that. You can still get that in like web players and stuff, and that's ridiculous. God. Or you end up with
you look at your Android phone, it's just a big ad, and you're like, there isn't actually a lock button.
You're like, where do
you can unlock after
go?
you've watched this 30-second advert.
Yeah, it's man, ridiculous. But yeah, luckily, so they're gone now, which is good. But yeah, because even then, like the SlideJoy ads weren't like 30-second video ads. It was the Amazon style, like just image ad that you see whilst unlocking, as opposed to
Tesco Mobile tried to do something similar for a bit, where you could get money off your bill if you had like this app installed on your phone, which obviously showed ads.
Right. I know that Vitality
all kind of wrong.
Vitality Healthcare had, because we covered this. This might have been like the second ever podcast, because this is a while ago now. But they had if you used their app, you would get like 10% off an Apple Watch every month that you met your target.
Yeah.
And what you'd do is if you bought it like through them, so if you like claimed it against their health insurance, you could use the app for 10 months and they'd basically pay you back the money for the Apple Watch.
All right. Okay.
Which was cool until the app stopped syncing. So
they were like, crap, all these people were going to get free Apple Watches. What are we going to do? Just turn it off. Just turn it off.
So people were like doing all the exercise and then not get the money back because the app wouldn't sync.
No Apple Watch for you. Oh dear.
It's a crazy world we live in, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And everyone blames millennials, which is a bugbear of mine. But just advertising and stuff like that is just a minefield now, isn't it? Sure enough, anybody that introduces anything, it's just going to be exploited by people to show you adverts.
Yeah.
Lock screens and God knows what.
And there is an argument to be made, and I was listening to a podcast a while back, and it wasn't even like tech related or anything. I was just like having a discussion, and someone mentioned that they mentioned in passing that, and I hadn't realized this until I kind of thought about it, that adverts, people want less adverts in their life, but it does kind of give you a sort of context of what's going on in the world. If you were to ask me what's running in the cinema right now, I couldn't name a single film that's currently in cinemas, because usually you'd know by watching an advert. So there's this kind of filling in of social information that no longer exists. Where because there are constant Coke ads, but if someone was to message me right now being like, "Hey, do you want to catch a film?" I'd be like, "I have no idea what films there are. I couldn't tell you."
Yeah, I guess so. It's almost like that's the news source, isn't it? I guess that's where people get their information from. And I often wonder, because obviously the world now is just filled with TV screens, and we now have effectively TV screens in our pockets and stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff has got to be funded, and a lot of the content that we consume has got to be funded by adverts. So there's no two ways to get around it. I mean, most of the internet is basically provided by adverts, isn't it? Most of the content and stuff that you read is ad supported. There's no there isn't a very easy to navigate world that exists without adverts. It's just the ethics and stuff behind it is very, very questionable. And advertising companies are not making one decent wage for people, are they? They're making like hundreds and thousands of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
In exchange for whatever adverts they do. None of these ad companies are breaking even, are they? They're not just doing it to provide us with free content. They're doing it to make obscene amounts of money.
It is literally Google's main business.
Yeah, exactly. And that's done a lot of good in the world. I mean, they're kind of moonshot projects and stuff, and I can't remember the name of the company. They've got like obviously a healthcare company, haven't they, that just does ridiculous amounts of research into all sorts of things like glucose monitoring, things that you put in your eyes, and they've made like fake skin so doctors can learn to do injections and stuff better and all that sort of stuff, which is all done by adverts. So a lot of people that get annoyed by kind of things, you've got to take into account all the good and stuff that they do as well, haven't you, I guess?
Yeah, and I do try to, because there are certain, I run an ad block, right? But I make sure to whitelist any content that I find to actually be good content, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
Because there'll be times where, I'll be researching for something, and you go into a website and they have autoplay video that isn't even on the screen when you first load up the website. Mm-hmm. Or even worse, there was, I think it might have been CNN. They had autoplay video that doesn't start until 30 seconds after you've got on the page. So you'll be like halfway through scrolling through, and all of a sudden this noise appears, and you're like, what the hell is this? And you realize it's autoplayed some random video.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just all those things that have kind of ruined it for everybody else, haven't they?
Yeah. Right. I reckon, so we've been live for an hour and a half. Also, real quick, Paul said, it's not millennials' fault. Don't blame them. # blame Greg.
That's absolutely fine. I mean, technically, I'm a millennial, so screw you, Paul.
I have to say, # blame Greg was the most hilarious situation.
Yeah, random people actually joined in. Yeah. The first time I've actually experienced that.
Because I mentioned it in passing on someone's stream. I was like, hey, by the way, because it was Emily's stream actually. You were on the same episode as Emily once,
yes.
The Twitch streamer. So I was in her stream and I was like, hey guys, if you have a second, can you tweet and I just did like # blame Greg and then your username. I was like, can you just copy and paste this and tweet it out for me? And like a few people did it. And I was like, oh cool, thanks guys.
I was just like, who the hell are these people? What's George done now? God damn it.
Paul makes a good mention. Give Me Sport does the same thing where they have like a delay on their autoplay video. I actually wrote an article for Give Me Sport once.
They actually get around the ad block somewhere. The amount of times I've just had to go in and gone to like report autoplay video, and it's still that even if you run an ad block on the page, it still does stuff. And it also plays random videos that have no relation to like the article on Gimme Sport that you're reading.
Yeah.
That is one of the worst websites on the internet. And they do that thing where it's just like, guess what? You'll never believe what Cesc Fabregas has done, and it looks there's nothing to do with the picture that they've used on the little caption or whatever.
Yeah, I think clickbait in general is just the most annoying thing. Yeah. So I did. This is 5 years ago. So this is 15-year-old George published an article because this is. I think they still run the account.
Are you still pretending you're young? We all know you're 30.
You know what? I was at an event last week. Week before last, and there's a Bing have a age AI, right? It's not an age AI. It's a demographic AI, and one of the demographics it throws up is age, because it has like gender, age, and then sentiment. So if you're like smiling or frowning, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so, when I use because they have a web version that isn't in real time. So if I upload a picture of me clean shaven, it says I look 17 or 18, something like that. When I was there 2 weeks ago, I walked up to it and it thought I looked 36.
Yep.
And I was just like, thanks, Bing. Thank you for not at all terrifying me. And I think it is mostly the beard. Because when I shave, I do look 12.
You should do one of those Foursquare meme things where you just like shaving halfway through and it's a baby at the end.
Oh, man. I could do that. That's a good idea. But yeah, so back in 2011, right? So, 2013. I was talking about 2011. I did. So I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Wait, hang on. You mentioned this in passing in one of the episodes of the BYOD podcast. You're a Arsenal fan, aren't you? Arsenal, Spurs, one of those. I can't remember.
Yeah, Arsenal.
That's one. So I'm a Chelsea fan. And
we can no longer be friends. I'm sorry.
Beyond the point. The point being, I published an article 5 years ago talking about why Chelsea should stick with Fernando Torres. That was the crowning achievement of everything I'd ever done.
And people actually believe what you write. I don't know how you get away with this. I was going to ask you what you thought about the P20 Pro when it comes. I'm just not going to bother now. Stick with Fernando Torres, honestly.
Oh man, yeah. Maybe I'm actually a double agent, and I've just been. I'm a sleeper agent. I'm, taking them apart from me.
Misinformation. Fake news. George is fake news.
Oh man. But yeah, I have a friend who's a West Ham fan, and I like seeing West Ham fail because I find it hilarious. Because he gets really emotional. Because I watch them if I remember they're playing, but I'm not a very passionate fan. Like I've been to Stamford Bridge a few times, but I only support them because I was born like really close to their stadium, and
so that makes you a proper fan then.
Yeah, right.
Because you were born in the right place.
Yeah, it's because I was born, like, not only that, but my uncle, who is a very big football fan and has season tickets to Stamford Bridge. So whenever I did see football live, it would be at Chelsea. So it was, it was helpful. But I forgot what my original point was. I've completely lost my original point. What was I talking about? Oh, no. Oh, hang on. Yeah, my friend who's a West Ham fan. That's one. Thanks, Paul. He gets sort of really emotional about it, and I like seeing West Ham fail just to see how he reacts. Jack, if you're listening to this, I love you, really. I promise. It's not that I want to see you in pain. Well, it is what I want to see you in pain. It's just so funny, and like I respect you as a person, but it's just like, let's be completely honest. West Ham never do really well, right? Because I'm sure when they do really well, that'd also be great to watch, but that's never happening. They're more likely to do really badly. So, so that's what I have to put up with. But yeah, so he tweeted out like earlier today about, because Chelsea West Ham match was today, ended 1-1.
Yep.
And it was one of those things where I was like, I'm beyond being surprised whatever happens with Chelsea, because they have a habit of being really good one season and really mediocre the next. I'm not sure how they do it.
Yes,
but they do it.
No. Try being an Arsenal fan. God.
Oh man, I'd rather not.
It's just
frankly.
averageness.
You guys would have been 3 points ahead of Burnley had you lost today, which is hilarious in its own right.
Weird, isn't it? Yeah, you just cannot predict the football and stuff, and then that, like, decent sides like Southampton are in the relegation zone. Do you know what I mean? It's just crazy.
Yeah. Oh, fun fact: Paul is a Southampton fan. Now that you mentioned Southampton.
I was gonna say Paul's probably not a football fan. He probably like gets really emotional when like the synchronized swimming or whatever fails.
But no, Paul actually, he went to wear a Southampton shirt for one of his shows, and I was like, no, get rid of that. You're not wearing this.
How about no?
But yeah, he's more of a football fan than I am, and he supports Southampton. So if anything, Chelsea gained like 0.5 of a fan, Southampton gained 1, and Arsenal have like -2. So
Yes.
at that point, I think we're going to call it a show. Because
Before you offend anybody else.
it was tech from beginning to end. Paul says he now likes you purely because you disagree with me. Can't say I blame him.
The friend of my the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yep, that's the one. So you're
That's all very well, Paul, but I still think you're a douche. So
Oh. It is great watching sort of because I hope that the followers are also aware that it is like hard banter. But
of course
like,
it is. Yeah, I love Paul really.
yeah, but it is like because
I prefer the panda, but Paul's all right.
Oh man, oh no, he now likes you more because I don't stop berating him for the panda. So
Yeah, so George, we've had a bit of psychiatry for you. We've talked about Facebook, Huawei. Anything else you want to ramble on about?
No, it's been technology from beginning to end.
It's good to have you back, buddy.
It's good to be back, and I'm currently working on a video. I'm working on multiple videos actually. One on this, one on the P20 once that arrives, one on a smart wall clock I spent £100 on.
Smart wall clock sounds interesting.
Yes, and then there's also one where I'm going to be talking about my mini breakdown, so that'll be fun. If you're not aware of that, I fell apart on Twitter a bit like a couple months ago.
As most people do.
That's kind of what happened. It was an interesting time, but I'm back now.
One place on the internet you're going to fall apart. It's definitely going to be Twitter.
Well, from what I hear, it's actually Tumblr more so because that's just full of.
Actually, yeah. Is that still around?
Oh no, it is. It's actually got more active users than Twitter.
Oh.
Yeah, it's got more monthly active users than Twitter because I did a.
I'm far too old to use Tumblr.
Yeah, and I'm not female enough to use Tumblr, so here we are. I think Tumblr is 80% female, if I'm not mistaken.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is sort of ridiculously female based. Like it is a well-known fact that if you want to get to females on the internet, you do it via Tumblr.
Paul's logging into Tumblr right this second. Paul at Tumblr.
It's I think it's their username .tumblr.com because it works because it's supposed to work like Blogspot, like that kind of deal.
Oh, I can't say I've ever used it. It's always been a Gen Z sort of thing, isn't it? It's like a hipster hangout.
Tumblr is it's one of those places where I'd never go if it was the death of me. Like.
Yes.
I don't
Didn't
even
have a porn problem at one stage. I think I remember.
Not at one stage. It still does. As far as I'm aware, I think that is still an issue. Or at least it was an issue like a year ago. About a year and 3 months ago. Because my ex-girlfriend used Tumblr extensively, and it was a major issue back when when we were still together. I assume it still is. I don't know. But yeah, so Greg, if you in the show notes we have links to your Twitter and the BYOD podcast website. However, feel free to pimp them. What are you working on? What's going on?
Well, I seem to be podcasting all the things at the moment. I've just done a test episode for a random gaming-esque podcast called Pal Key, which I'm assured by my good friend Daryl, who takes part in it. Is something to do with gaming and Metal Gear Solid. So it's just basically an hour where he tries to convince me to play more games,
right?
And I refuse, which is all the fun. But everything else, just follow me on Twitter at gr36, gr36.com. There is a gr36 podcast. We've done 2 episodes now. There is, yeah.
What?
Random, like 5 or 6 minute rubbish about stuff.
I saw
it's surprisingly easy to launch one now.
Yeah, because what's it called? Anchor, isn't it? That's the name of that.
Yeah,
Anchor is really cool.
Dead easy.
Yes.
Not
here it is. Cool.
Anything.
I'm gonna subscribe because I actually use Anchor. Because I was thinking of using that as my aggregation service. This is back when Anchor first launched. Because Anchor actually launched about the same time as the Snappy-Tech Podcast. So it would be about a year old now. And yeah, because I was thinking of using that as the podcasting host, and this is before
Yeah.
you could upload audio to it and stuff. So now it is a genuinely really good way to do audio-only podcasts.
Yeah. You don't even need to edit it. You can kind of just ramble on for a few minutes, and they handle all the distribution to iTunes and all that sort of stuff. So yeah,
Crazy.
crazy. But yeah, y'all should subscribe.
Yes, I'm assuming the R in GR36 is a middle name.
No, it just spells Greg.
Oh, okay. Yep, I get it now. That is okay. Yep, okay. I mean, having one G and one 6 doesn't help, but okay, I see that now.
Yeah, GR3G had gone.
Oh, okay. Because I'd been looking. I spend way too much time looking at people's Twitter handles, but if this is a question, but whoops, this is a question.
And I'm not 36.
That was the thing. I was like, did he make his Twitter account when he was 36? I was so confused. I was like, oh, maybe he was born in 1936.
Yes, I was born in 1936. And I don't know why I just went southern, like from Virginia then, but apparently I was from Virginia as well.
Oh man, but yeah, I wanted to know. I don't want to ask, but now I know. It spells Greg, kinda. If you squint and tilt the screen.
Kinda, sort of. Yeah. You know, I signed up for Twitter in like 2007 or something stupid,
Right.
and already like all the decent ones were gone. So it suggests something like Greg 452P7517. So I thought long and hard, and I was just like, what kind of looks like that? And I was trying to work it out from like number plate typey stuff. And yeah, GR3G had gone, so I was GR36, and that was it.
Fair enough. Here I was thinking you were GR1 through 35 were taken, and you kind of.
That was the I wanted to be GR1, but all of them were taken. Weirdly, I think there is a GR35. If I remember.
Oh, is there
rightly.
actually? Let me check this.
I think so. Something random. Yeah, there is quite a few There's a GR357.
There are no tweets though, so you could probably take it if you wanted.
There's a GR35133. These are all bots, aren't they? Surely.
Well, this one's interesting.
I want this
June
one.
2009.
GR35 Turbo.
What?
I want that one.
It's fine. But these random people are gonna. Oh, I can't see GR35 Turbo. Is there a 0 instead of an O? Is that it?
Possibly. It's difficult to tell on Twitter. GR35 is Nigel Johnson. Hi, Nigel, if you're watching.
If you are, make us your first tweet.
Did you ever used to do that thing when you was a kid, when you got your mobile phone? It's like, put your number in, but change the last digit to like one up from yours, and just go, we're phone number buddies.
No, but when we moved back to the UK from Hong Kong, we all got our phone numbers at the same time.
So you're all
So we were.
You used to be able to pick your numbers.
So this is before you picked your number, and it was actually our phone numbers were. Like, mine ended in 127 because I was the third oldest in the family. But, like, my dad's ended in 126. My mum's in 127, mine in 128, and my sister's in 129. So the rest of the number was the same, apart from the last digit. Yeah. And that was very bizarre.
Very bizarre. So I'm Twitter handle buddies with Nigel Johnson.
Yes, you are.
No tweets. I don't like it now. It's not an egg.
Oh, I never even thought about that. How do you?
Yeah, it's not an egg anymore. The little thingy is like a it's a
blob,
grey person outline.
It's a grey blob.
You sound up in 2009. When did Twitter? Surely they should start reclaiming stuff.
I think you can apply for it at that point. You can apply if it hasn't been used in like 6 months or something. There is like if no one asks for it, I think they'll just leave it as it is. But if you
Because to me, that you would go through and just reclaim stuff, because I mean, anybody that signs up now is not going to be able to get anything even remotely close to what they want.
Yeah, the only consolation for me is that Chachanidzé isn't a very popular name, so G Chachanidzé tends to work. Which is, having just said that, it's now going to be taken on everything. Great.
Just sign up for everything.
So it's probably going to be Paul now that I think about it. The next time I go to sign up for something, it's going to be like, oh wait, I claimed your username.
Right, on that note, I'm off.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this
You are very
episode,
welcome.
you can subscribe to the podcast and catch it weekly again because we're back now. You can support us on Patreon, snpy.tech/Patreon. If you want something a bit more casual, we have a coffee page at snpy.tech/coffee, spelled KOFI, which is a lot of fun. So go do that. Check us out weekly, and we'll see you next week when we have Paul and maybe some guests. I don't know. We'll see. Depends. Usually people don't like us very much. Not that I can blame them. Okay, bye.